Joining me now is Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen, Happy New Year to you.
Good to be with you.
Was I incorrect in how I described it? If you could support what Senator Lankford described essentially, or there's bipartisan support for what he described on the border versus what President Trump describes for the border?
No, you're right. And Democrats have always supported strong border security, and that requires a combination of border secure agents. It requires technology. It requires barriers. Call them what you want. Fences, walls.
So you do admit some barriers need to be there.
They've been there for years, many of them. Some of them can be strengthened. But the point is the president keeps misleading the country into thinking that we can somehow stop, all the problems at the border by building a 2,000-mile concrete wall. That's not going to happen, and that's what this has come down to. I did hear my colleague.
Is this a debate over semantics?
No, it's not a debate over semantics.
Some people think it is.
It's a debate over delusion by the President of the United States, who told all his supporters that he was going to build this 2,000-mile wall, which people like Mick Mulvaney, his acting chief of staff, had said was childish, or so many words, that his outgoing chief of staff said is something they really abandoned years ago, and which the president said Mexico would pay for. Senator Lankford said something interesting. He said he would supporting the 7 appropriation bills. Right. Of course, what the House just sent the Senate last night was 6 of those appropriation bills for the full remainder of the fiscal year that the Senate approved, and then a stopgap measure for Homeland Security.
Let me ask you this. Whatever's happening this weekend, you represent a lot of federal government workers in the state of Maryland. Should they be mildly optimistic that at least there is a process to have talks, even if it's low level?
Obviously, talking is better than no talking.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, based on what the president said about this going on for months or years, I'm very worried. I mean, we've seen other government shutdowns, but people are able to resolve them. This is a different president who seems out of touch in so many ways. And you can't negotiate with anybody but him. As you said, Republican senators left 2 weeks ago thinking they had President Trump's blessing on the temporary measure, only to find out that they were wrong.
I want to move to the other story. I want to just get your reaction to Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's comments, the new Congresswoman from Michigan, and the expletive she used about impeachment.
So, look, I wouldn't have used that language. I don't think it's language that Trump can pretend he's shocked by. Right. But on the issue of impeachment, I think Nancy Pelosi and Democrats have actually been very clear and consistent. We've said all along it depends on what the Mueller investigation comes up with. And we don't know the answer to that question right now. No one's itching for an impeachment, but no one's going to say we're going to prejudge this issue without knowing the facts from the Mueller
You really believe that there's no one elected in the House of Representatives in this last cycle that isn't itching for this?
No, there are definitely.
I mean, there are people itching.
Oh, no, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
And there are individual members who've introduced articles of impeachment. But Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership have been very clear and very consistent. They're not itching for an impeachment, but they can't rule it out without knowing the facts of what the Mueller investigation.
Do you feel like your constituents, particularly in the Democratic side of the aisle, where our exit poll showed over 70% believe that Congress 70% of Democrats believe that he should be impeached and removed from office. Do you think your party can afford not to at least start impeachment hearings in the House?
So I can tell you my constituents definitely want a new president, but overwhelmingly they are looking to 2020 and beating Donald Trump in 2020. Now, if the Mueller
Are you one of those that prefers a 2020 versus impeachment?
As of today, yes, but I cannot forecast what the Mueller investigation will bring. And just as, Nancy Pelosi was right, no one should be impeaching Donald Trump for political reasons, but nobody can decide not to do their duty for political reasons either. And so let's just find out whether or not the Mueller investigation reveals more information that requires that people take action.
Is there any part of you that says, look, at some point we have to reopen the government no matter what we have to do here, that you have to give him something? At what point do you feel is there ever a pressure point in your mind that you're like, let's give him something to get out of this, we got to reopen the government?
Well, it all depends on what you mean by something, but no one's going to give him $5 billion for an unnecessary and ineffective wall, because in addition to the $5 billion this year, The same thing will happen next year. This wall doesn't cost $5 billion. This is something like $28 to $30 billion. And so what you're going to be doing is saying, okay, Trump, every year you can once again threaten to shut down the government to get the wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. So as Senator Langford pointed out, this administration in their own budget this year only asked for $1.6 billion. They haven't even spent all of the $1.3 billion that was provided last year.
If he said, I'll take the 1.6, would that be, and I know that you guys have taken that off the table. At that point, though, would you be like, fine, let's get out of this thing?
No, look, we were very clear. The 1.6, the way it was written, also had language saying it's not for a wall. If the president's talking about border security money, we've already provided it. We're happy to have a conversation about border security. He just needs to stop deluding his followers and the country about this idea of a 2,000-mile wall.
Senator Chris Van Hollen, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for coming in, sharing your views. And again, Happy New Year. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.